I really don't care what no one else says. I'll say this much. They really deserved it. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to me and to everybody else who's probably watching because I've been busy at my local indoctrination center doing my best to fight off the indoctrination while getting a higher education, which makes college much worse than it should be, quite honestly. Any schmoozle. However, I did get through my finals. But the English professor that I took English under is trying to withhold my grade because he's got an ideological bias against me. Funny how that works. That being said, let's jump into what the subject matter for today is going to be, shall we? And that's some MrBallen. MrBallen, the most effed up circus act on camera, trigger warning, animal harm. Ooh. Ooh. Okay, well, there you go, folks. Warning. If you are weak, don't watch this. If you're weak, don't watch it. That's what, well, then, never mind. Let's just go. Y'all ready? I'm ready. Let's go.
There are a handful of images that periodically make the rounds on the internet because they're so shocking and horrible looking that most people assume they are fake, but they're not. Today, I'm going to tell you a wild story that is the background to one of those photos. And then at the end, I will show you this totally bizarre and shocking photo. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So if that's of interest to you, please wire the like button's bedroom lights to turn on every time the like button gets in bed. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads.
You'd need to set up like some contact, or you could time it. You know, and I totally have zero experience doing this to anyone ever. Okay, I'm just your friendly online military LARPer. Okay, I've totally never been in the military ever, totally. And if you believe that, I've got a bridge to sell you. But yeah, you could actually like, if you could time it within like a second, you can do some crazy stuff with wires, with wires and metal contacts. You could do crazy stuff, right? So yeah, but I highly recommend against doing so because if something goes wrong, you start a fire. Something else goes wrong, you use too much voltage, you can shock someone. Be careful, okay? Don't try it at home, kids. All right, but yeah, you could time it. If you wire something up like inside of a house, like, you know how some people have like clap lights or click lights, or they got lights that are connected to like their voice thing or whatever. And they're like, oh, turn on the lights because it's all connected. Well, you can actually also, you can set it up to where there's a timer. And you could time somebody to the second, depending on what they do when they are in that room, at what time during the day, within a certain plus or minus, a percentage of accuracy. Or, you could go the hardwire method and you could actually hook stuff up to people's beds. Yes. That if you have like the contacts, within like, it could be a centimeter or could be an inch, depending on how much the bed gives way and how tough the spring is and all that kind of stuff. But you have contacts on either end hooked up to wires that connect the circuit. And then when someone lays down, ding, it turns something on or activates something, stuff like that. So yeah, That would be actually pretty funny to do to do to somebody as a prank. However, I've never done anything like that ever totally in my entire life, so I wouldn't know. Let's go.
Okay, let's get into today's story.
Like I say all the time, love MrBallen's. I love MrBallen's intro, but I'm not allowed to play it. So yeah, I gotta skip over it quite a bit. Unfortunately. Okay, that should about do it. Okay, and why is this not cooperate? What are you doing, OBS? OBS, why are you acting like a twit? Apologies, y'all. This is acting rather strange. There we go. That was weird. Anyway, I'll probably just edit it out. Oh man, I forgot I have to edit this. Alright, let's go.
On September 12, 1916, residents of the little mining town called Kingsport, Tennessee, left their homes and packed the main street. Because on this day, a traveling circus called Sparks' World Famous Shows was coming to town. The performers in this traveling circus were going to put on a big parade and then end it with a traditional circus act.
I had a very strong suspicion at the beginning that it was going to be something from like an old school circus and not modern day. Because modern day, I don't think they cut out a lot of stuff modern day. And the last time I heard anything about a circus, they were heavily regulated. And I mean heavily, like every place they stopped at, inspections galore from freaking every level. From federal level on down to local level, they would get inspected. Like pretty much every single day they were out there. Actually, I have not heard of a circus in a very long time. I'll have to look that up. They're fun. They can be fun. Circuses, carnivals, if you're into that, they're a lot of fun. They're a lot of fun. Anyway, that'd be my bad. I'm tangenting. Let's go.
This was going to be the most exciting and biggest event that had ever happened in Kingsport. Kingsport was not an affluent place. Most people lived in tents instead of homes, and many of the roads were mud. And so they were really desperate for something fun and exciting to happen. By around noon, all the residents who were lining the main street began hearing the sound of music off in the distance. And then from around the corner came clowns who were banging cymbals and blowing on kazoos. And then there were acrobats and dogs painted different colors. And there were men juggling and walking on stilts and walking upside down. There were horses and lions and trained sea lions. I mean, this parade was a total spectacle, and the residents of Kingsport loved it. They were screaming and cheering with excitement. But the most exciting part of this parade were the elephants. There were 5 of them, and they were at the front of the parade, and they each had their trunks wrapped around the other elephant's tail. So they were walking in a line. And the elephant at the very front of these 5 elephants was very clearly the star of the show. Her name was Mary, and the owner of the circus, whose name was Charlie Sparks, advertised Mary as being the largest living land animal on Earth. She weighed more than 5 tons, which is 10,000 pounds, and Charlie had had her since she was a baby, and he had taught her many tricks. She could stand on her head, she could play 25 songs on a trumpet, and she could throw a baseball. Charlie loved Mary like she was his child, and Charlie knew that Mary was really his ticket to real success.
Oh man, I have a sinking suspicion that up front, not all is as it seems. Brother, the kind of stuff like I remember reading about certain things for circuses like way back in the day. It was like some almanac or something. or it was like was it Reader's Digest? My memory is kind of fucked. I'm old, okay? Leave me alone. Um, but there was like an almanac or something I read that they were talking about, like, how circuses used to be horrific, like terrible places, especially for animals. There was lots of animal cruelty. I mean, like lighting a tiger's tail, lighting a big cat's tail on fire, stuff like that. Like, bub. Hmm. Although one thing I'm curious about is why people actually have a fear of clowns, outside of, like, people who are crazy and they're clowns. Wonder where that comes from. Somebody let me know.
At this time in America, there were lots of other traveling circuses that Charlie had to compete with, and generally speaking, Charlie's circus was on the smaller side. And so this was frustrating for Charlie because he was always trying to find new ways to grow his circus and make it more fun and enjoyable, but a lot of his efforts didn't really work out. However, he at least had Mary, who always seemed to draw a crowd. And when Mary walked down Main Street of Kingsport, everybody was totally amazed by her, and they were totally jealous of the man on her back who got to ride her. It was her handler. His name was Red Edridge. When the parade finally came to an end, and Charlie was getting ready to shift the entire performance from parade to traditional circus act, Red, Mary's handler, took Mary and led her over to a nearby pond to let her get a drink of water. Red, who was 38 years old, was new to elephant handling. In fact, Charlie had hired him just a day earlier when Charlie's show had passed through Virginia, where Red was working as a janitor. Animal handlers in Charlie's show were all trained to treat the animals gently, especially Mary. But Red was a grouchy person who was a very skinny guy with bright red hair, and he had been teased for much of his life, which had kind of made him a mean person. And so as he and Mary are walking over to this pond, Mary saw a watermelon on the ground and stopped to eat it. And as she was doing this, Red noticed there was a group of people kind of forming up around them, just kind of amazed by Mary. And they were noticing that Red was trying to get Mary to go to the pond to get her drink of water. And she wasn't listening. She was focused on the watermelon. And so Red very likely started to feel insecure, that they would think he wasn't in control of the animal. And so he got mad and he took his metal prod and he jabbed it into the side of Mary's head, right behind her ear, breaking her skin. Now, Mary was a very gentle creature, but over the past 24 hours that Red had been her new handler, he had been cruel like this. And so when he poked her with that prod, it was like Mary snapped. Mary dropped the watermelon.
Oh, brother. Oh, brother. Just the absolute. Oh, man. Okay. I don't feel sorry for this guy at all, because if you're a mean person, you don't deserve the air you breathe. Right? And people are going to say stuff like, oh, well, upbringing and blah, blah. I'm like, okay, that all contributes, sure. But if you choose to, it is the decision. As someone who has literally been on the psychological, emotional, mental, roller coaster my entire existence, I can say this for a fact. It is a decision to stay and consistently be just bad. That's a personal decision. You're not driven to do it. No one's forcing you to. And nobody has a gun to your head saying, go and do this thing, right? In Minecraft. That way YouTube stops being such weak little whatevers. Anyway, that's a decision. It's a choice. Yes, it is. Now, does upbringing have part way to do with it? Yeah, because it's, you're opening the door. But still, just being unnecessarily cruel. Just no. Just no. And, of course, MrBallen has to softball this because he has to play both sides to keep his content going. Right? He can't knuckle down hard on anything. Otherwise, he'll lose a lot of viewers because, well, people are fickle. And that's just how humans are. However, I am not MrBallen. I am not. And I'm telling the truth. It's a decision to remain a certain way. Human beings have the capacity for change. We have the potential for it, no matter what else is going on. Otherwise, redemption wouldn't even exist. Redemption and all that kind of stuff wouldn't be a thing if we were incapable of change. It's a decision to do so or not to do so. So yeah, this guy, and on top of that, he poked an animal that outweighs him by I'm being generous, like 9,900 and we'll say 80 pounds. Or no, 9,900 and I'd say, 40 or 30, right? It outweighs him by that many pounds. If it so much as barely steps on his foot, he will no longer have toes. Like, that's how powerful these animals are. And by the way, I've ridden elephants. They're awesome creatures. They really are. They're really awesome. They're so awesome. They're so fun. And they're very cute. Right? They play tricks with you with their snout. Anyway. Africa can be a wonderful place in certain places. Just stay away from various certain places in Africa. But yeah, like, I got no sympathy for him. He poked, he injured something that outweighs him by over 9,900 pounds. Oh no, he's unalived at this point, right? He is deleted. He is deleted. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Let's go. I feel no sympathy for this guy. I really don't. And if you do, well, I guess you're a better human than I am. But I'm rooting for the elephant.
Ellen turned to face Red, and Red, he's startled by this and just kind of stares up at Mary, wondering what's going on. And Mary would wrap up Red in her long trunk and throw him into a nearby drink stand. At this point, the crowd of children and other people from Kingsport who were watching Mary started to scream and run away. And Mary, she was not done with Red, who was now groaning and rolling over onto his back. Mary walked over to Red, and then she got up on her hind legs and came crashing down directly, all 10,000 pounds of her, onto Red's skull, killing him instantly. Charlie heard all this commotion over near the pond, and he ran over and he found Mary looking totally terrified, and so he began to comfort her, and then he noticed on the ground next to her was Red's mangled body. And around this time, the townspeople who had run in fear had now come back, and they saw what Mary had done. And instead of being scared of Mary, all these townspeople got angry and began screaming at Mary the elephant, "Murderer! Murderer!"
Oh, man. Like I said earlier, and this exemplifies that, people are fickle. People are fickle, right? Which is why, like, the modern day segregationists are getting so much, what do you call it? They're gaining a lot today. Yes, there's a modern day segregationist movement. Don't believe me? Look this up, okay? Don't believe me? Look this up. I can't make this up. It's like we're back in the 50s, 60s, 70s. You know. Anyway, but yeah, people are fickle. She was defending herself, and people failed to understand that. Now, people are going to say something like ignorance, right? They were ignorant of what the trainer was doing, but there were witnesses. So why weren't the witnesses, right, who saw him do this to her? They saw him abusing her. But of course, to them, they probably just thought of her as only an animal, right? A cool animal, but they think of her only as an animal. As in, like, animal inanimate object, not animal living being, right? That's a possibility. That's what it seems like to me. And then suddenly when he injures her, right? He injures her and she defends herself by eliminating the threat like nature intended. Because that's the only way to, yeah, anyway. Suddenly everybody around is like, oh, well, you're the bad thing. You're the evil thing, right? Like I said, people are fickle. Then again, back in those days, a lot less people knew a lot less about these animals than they do today, right? Nowadays, people know more about animals, but there's still a huge amount of people that have the mentality that we are above other living beings by the dint of us having a greater collective control and dominance over the planet than most other species. Arguably, I say arguably because you can also make the argument humanity is fighting nature consistently, and I don't know, we don't seem to win a lot. We don't. Anyway, but yeah, just people are fickle. Even today, people have that kind of reaction. Harambe, anybody remember him? My boy Harambe got shot. Which, okay, would be understandable if he was about to, unalive somebody. That's understandable, sure. But at the same time, this comes back to people being fickle. Because of the initial outburst of people being angry with Harambe, they shot him. Which you can make an argument either way. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. All right, let's continue with people being fickle, shall we? Totally forgot about this. I have to skip it. I apologize, people. I apologize. I have to skip it. So I gotta transition out, and I have to skip it because YouTube doesn't like the ads. Hey, don't blame me. Blame YouTube. And by the way, it's the MrBallen Foundation, and if you're watching my stuff, you've already watched him. So you've already got all the links and stuff. But the original video will be in the description box down below in case you want to go get the link and do whatever it is that he's asking you to do for the MrBallen Foundation. And I am not being paid by MrBallen to say that, so YouTube, quit doing your dumb shenanigans, or you'll be at war with me. And I know war better than you do. Anyway, let's go. Let's go. Someone's going to take that one completely the wrong way, and I'm going to enjoy it.
This was, of course, a worst-case scenario for Charlie, just from a business perspective, because Mary was the star of his show, and she had just very publicly killed her handler. In the hours after Red's death, news of murderous Mary began spreading around town and to other towns nearby, and before long there was a mob of people trying to kill Mary who had to be held back, and then also the sheriff of Kingsport at some point came up to Mary and fired his gun at her, but Mary was so big and her skin was so tough, the bullets did not penetrate. Also, within hours of Red being killed, the town that Charlie and his circus were supposed to go to next sent word that they were not allowed to come if Mary was going to be with them. Charlie knew that at this point, even though Mary had been the star of his show, that if he didn't get rid of her, he would be out of business. He'd be financially ruined. However, he loved Mary. She was his oldest and most loyal partner, and he couldn't imagine giving her up. But Charlie was also very ambitious, and he had a whole crew of people in his circus that depended on doing these shows to make a living. And so, on the night of Red's death, Charlie would lay awake all night just thinking about what he was going to do. And by early the next morning, Charlie had come up with a plan. Charlie ordered his entire circus to pack up and get back on the train. They were going to head to the next town called Irwin. And Charlie said, once they got there, they would put on a show that no one in the world had ever seen before. Sparks' world-famous shows arrived in Irwin at about 10 a.m. that day, and immediately all the performers began setting up for this big show, which again would start with a parade, followed by a circus act, and then a grand finale. Now, Irwin was already packed by the time the circus actually arrived, because news of what Charlie had planned for this grand finale had reached Irwin and the surrounding towns, and so everybody had flooded this town to see it. At midday, Charlie's team was ready, and they began the parade, but Mary was not a part of the parade. Instead, she was chained up inside of the main circus area where the circus act would take place after the parade ended.
Oh, no. No, 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 no. No, no, no. 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 Tell me he's not going to do what I think he's going to do. Tell me he's not going to, I don't know, burn her alive or have something eat her in front of the whole crowd or something like that. What are they going to do? I know it's going to end up with her getting murked. I'm pretty certain of that. That's what it sounds like so far. I don't like it. Ugh. Honestly, I can never find a way to just, because yes, she killed somebody, but that somebody deserved it, right? And then people are going to make the dumb argument of like, no, they didn't. No, shut up. He deserved it. He was abusive. He was a bad person. He deserved it. And she definitely doesn't deserve what's going to happen, because she was defending herself after being abused for so long. Oh, man. What do y'all think? What do y'all think? Let me know in the comments down below. Let's find out what this horrendous thing is going to be, because I have a feeling it's going to be horrendous.
And when the parade ended, it put on the circus act right around Mary, but Mary was not unchained. She was left in the middle of the circus, just kind of standing there, not sure what to do. She kind of swayed around with the music and trumpeted a few times, but she was confused and no one really knew what she was doing there. And then finally, the main circus act came to an end, and most of the performers went back into their tents. And at this point, all of the crowd who had been watching this circus began making their way over to the railroad yard. At the same time, Charlie and several of the animal handlers came out and grabbed the 4 other elephants who were not chained up, and they went over to Mary and they unchained her, and then they formed all the elephants up in a line with each of the trunks connected to the tail of the next elephant. And they marched all 5 elephants over to the railroad yard, where now there was a massive crowd that also included the press, who had shown up with their cameras ready to capture the grand finale. Charlie led Mary and the other 4 elephants onto the railroad tracks, which were up on this embankment, and once they got up there, Charlie halted the other 4 elephants and sent them away with their handlers, and left Mary all alone on the railroad tracks. And at this point, as Charlie is consoling her, one of the circus performers came over and chained Mary's back legs to the railroad tracks. Now, Mary was extremely well trained, and Charlie is right there comforting her. And so even though she was nervous as she was getting chained up, she didn't try to fight it. And as this was happening, a railroad worker climbed into a machine called a derrick, which is basically a big crane that's able to lift heavy things like lumber off of the railroad cars. And so this worker hops in the derrick, which is on tracks, and he brought it over right behind Mary. And so once the derrick was in place, and once Mary was securely fastened to the tracks, another worker climbed up onto the crane of the derrick, so the actual arm that was jutting out over Mary. This worker climbed up on top of it, and he grabbed the chain that was dangling off of it, and he jumped onto Mary's back, carrying this chain, and he looped it around Mary's neck and secured it, and then jumped off of Mary. At this point, Charlie, who was still holding on to Mary's trunk and comforting her, gave her one last embrace and then turned away from her and walked down the embankment toward the huge crowd who had now gone totally silent, sensing the grand finale was about to start.
No. No, it's so much worse than I thought it would be. So much worse than I thought it would be. Just. What? So they straight up. Oh, brother. Oh, man. At that point, I would have just gone to another state or something. I would have gone to a completely different state. I would not have sacrificed, the animal to appease a crowd who were just, like I said, people are fickle. People gonna people. People gonna people. That's about all I can say about it. Oh man, it's kind of like with Layla. Like if some dude was like trying to get at Layla and she bit him, I'd defend her to the death. Right? If somebody was being a jackanapes to my girl and she tore off a finger, I would defend it in court. Nope. I'd defend it in court. They were trying to get at her. She defended herself. I bought her extra biscuits this month. And beef jerky, because she loves beef jerky. I'd reward her. No, I don't tolerate, and I am intolerant of those types of people. He deserved what he got, and she's the one being punished for it. It doesn't make any sense to me, but what do y'all think? What do y'all think? Y'all let me know in the comments. All right, let's get through the finale. Rip, Mary. Big rip.
Once Charlie reached the crowd, he turned around to face Mary. He signaled the railroad worker in the derrick, who then pulled a lever inside of the derrick. At this point, the only sound that could be heard across the whole railroad yard was the sound of this chain that had just been activated slowly being retracted by the derrick. And so as it was pulling Mary up off the ground by her neck. And so as it tightened around Mary's neck and she realized she couldn't go anywhere because she's anchored to the tracks by her back legs, she began to panic and she kept looking over at Charlie and trumpeting, trying to get someone to help her, but no help came. And eventually the derrick tightened so much that it lifted Mary's front legs off the ground and her back legs were still on the ground. And so with one last look over at Charlie, she let out a trumpeting call and then her back legs left the ground and she went silent. And she was hung there until she died. Mary.
Bob. Bob. I understand it for the time, but just damn. Damn. Rip, Mary. Rest in peace, Mary. You didn't deserve it.
Mary's public execution was Charlie's big grand finale to this show. He had killed off this murderous elephant in an effort to appease the masses and save his circus business. And it did work. His circus continued to grow for a number of years. I mean, lots of people were interested in coming to see whatever he was doing because of the infamy around Mary. But after killing Mary, Charlie was never the same. He would actually retire early and then die in 1944. Today, Irwin, Tennessee is still known as the town that hung the elephant.
Jesus. Well, there we go, folks. There we go. The most effed up circus act on camera. He wasn't lying. She didn't deserve it. I would not have tried to appease them whatsoever. I would have probably given her a different name or something and pretended like, oh, we got rid of the elephant somewhere along the track somewhere, right? There's always a solution. But do y'all see why I'm not a big fan of big masses of people? Do you see why? And not only because of this, right? But because I've experienced it firsthand, right? I've been caught up in riots. I've seen the human animal, and the mob mentality. And I've seen how fickle people can be, right? Your average person does not care about anything outside of themselves, right? They're just grinding their way away at work just to make some cents and dimes, right? They don't care about anything else outside of that. Or if they do care, it's only because someone else told them what to care about, and that's it. That's as far as the thought process goes. And yet those same people wonder why they're stuck in the work that they are, where they're making a pittance for nothing, right? If you are, look, and don't even just believe me. Statistics shows this as well. Like I say all the time, don't believe me, go look this stuff up for yourself. But yeah, people are fickle, especially in mobs and crowds. You'll see people who might seem like the most rational, usual, even-headed people ever, and they'll be in a group of Antifa or BLM. So yeah, people are fickle. And because people are fickle, this poor elephant got executed. What do y'all think? Y'all let me know in the comments down below. All right, y'all know what time it is. I am back, and I'm going to try to upload as fast as I can, as much as I can, before my next semester of school, and I have to tolerate more CRT and this other new stuff nonsense, and yeah, I don't look forward to that. So yeah, what y'all think? Let me know in the comments down below. All right, so be good, be safe, make it life for yourselves. All right, everything important's in the description box down below, or it's somewhere else on the channel. You'll find it there. There's gonna be links for stuff in the video afterwards. Like, share, comment, subscribe. I'll see y'all next time. Badger